Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I love that bite, that hunger for more. That hunger for more. The Eagles 8-2, looking to keep pace with the Lions in the NFC. The Rams have won 4 out of 5. We're about to take a look at the matchups with Andrew DiCecco from Inside the Birds and InsideTheBirds.com here on the Sports Bash Live for another edition of Football at 4. And, Andrew, we take a look at this Rams team. They've won 4 out of 5. They got some really interesting offensive pieces. I want to start there and get your take on it because Quinyon Mitchell, he's kind of been a great story here. Cooper DeJean, adding those two guys to the secondary. Let's start with the Eagles secondary against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. How does that match up for you this week?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have both checked off every box along the way here, and they're obviously going against a very formidable tandem in Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. But I would expect them to be tested early with Matthew Stafford because veteran quarterback, he gets the ball out quick. He's able to make throws off the platform, and he's tough to corral. So I think that they're going to test him and test Quinyon in particular in coverage. And try to work the middle of the field as well. So I think both players are going to respond.
Looking at, last week, Jaden Daniels, a rookie, Thursday night, they kind of confused him. And I don't know how much that rib injury, didn't allow him to throw the ball down the field as much. But you're not going to confuse Matthew Stafford here, and that's going to be an interesting matchup there. But they do have a running back in Kyron Williams that is very good. It looks like their offensive line is starting to get into place. Does their run game worry you a bit?
Well, it doesn't worry me. It should worry the Eagles because Kyron Williams is a player who he has 750 rushing yards. He is their primary ball carrier. He has an interesting running style. I think he's really good at barreling forward. He can take it between the tackles. He's also explosive enough to take it outside and really, turn the corner and create some yards. And he has some explosiveness to him. But for the Eagles, I think they're going to be so fixated on trying to stop the passing game that Kyron Williams, to me, is the X factor. I think you have to bottle him up early, or if you make them too multifaceted, it could spell some trouble.
I agree with you there. I think he's an interesting X factor in this game. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. It's a fun matchup. The Rams, they played the Lions pretty tough early in the season. The ceiling for the Rams, I think, a little higher than their record 5-5 would indicate. If you look at the Rams on defense, by the way, before we get to that, the chess match between Vic Fangio and Sean McVay, that one should be fun because McVay has faced off against, Fangio and McVay have faced off. Fangio generally gets the better of him in these situations, so we'll see what he throws at this offense this time around. But let's look at the Eagles' offense. Eagles' receiving core, obviously, a little concern with Devontae Smith, Andrew, with his hamstring. But, man, there should be some meat on the bone in the secondary against the Rams.
Yeah, I think so, Mike, but they do have a rookie safety in Cam Kinchins from University of Miami. 3 interceptions. He has an interception return for a touchdown. He may be the only defensive back that keeps Quinyon Mitchell out of the Defensive Player of the Year consideration, or at least threatens it. And I think largely that's a secondary that's ripe for the picking, and I would expect the Eagles to kind of take to the air in this game. I do expect the Rams to try and find a way to bottle up Saquon Barkley early, sell out to stop the run, and really force Jalen Hurts to win the game with his arm. Now, Jalen has, it's been a little sporadic. I think largely he's done a nice job in controlling the offense and keeping it on schedule. But, he's always been able to turn to Saquon when maybe things have been a little patchy. But I think that he's going to have to probably win this game with his arm. And I believe that he can do it, but it's still something they're going to try and force.
Yeah, and, you mentioned they got young players. Jared Verse is another one. They've got young guys. Yeah, they've got a couple of young guys on that defense.
The linebacker, he's a kid from Philadelphia who I like in the draft. He's an inside linebacker for them, too.
Yeah, and you mentioned, they don't have Aaron Donald, and yet this defense hasn't, some people thought Donald's gone. They're just going to completely fall apart. I want to get your take, though. The Eagles obviously have run the ball. Saquon Barkley, this Russian offense has been fantastic. You might even say this is the identity of what they become. Why 22nd in the pass game? Why is the pass game struggling?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the newness and for Jalen, I just think that you had A.J. Brown out of the lineup for a few games in the season. That certainly is going to alter those numbers a little bit. Devontae's been a little bit banged up. It's been tough to get him going. He hasn't seen a ton of targets lately. Dallas Goedert's been out of the lineup for a handful of games as well. But I also think that Jalen has missed some throws. He's dropped his eyes in the face of pressure, which has stalled drives. But then he's able to kind of come alive there late in the game, which I give him a lot of credit for it, to have that kind of poise and put everything else behind you and make the key throws in big moments. But I just think he's been a little bit choppy as a passer. And not only Jalen, I think just the passing game as a whole has really struggled. Well, I don't want to say struggle, but it's been a little turbulent trying to find some consistency and continuity.
Yeah, it seems like they are, see if you agree or disagree, they're a big play passing game. They seem to hit the big play down the field. They're an explosive passing, but it's that the fluidity in the short game and the kind of, the quick passing game, that doesn't seem to be clicking still.
Right, and that is where you would really like to see the Eagles really refine that area. I thought that Kellen Moore, that was going to be a calling card of his, utilizing the middle of the field, the short to intermediate routes, and who knows, that could be on the way. And I think that we really haven't seen it because the Eagles haven't had to tap into it too much because Saquon's been so dominant. But I think this is a game where you have to take advantage of the middle of the field, get Dallas Goedert involved, and really start to work on that rhythmic passing game that's going to be timing-based and really control the game. A quarterback who was so good at that was Tom Brady, obviously, with doing that with Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola. And with the weapons that the Eagles have, they should be able to move the chains, 10, 12 yards at a time through the air. And I think that they're eventually going to have to tap into that element. And later in the season, I think teams are going to try and force them to do so.
I love that, because, and by the way, they're going to see it on the other side on Sunday night with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. Those are guys that catch it 6, 7, 8 yards down the field, kind of reverse spin their way up the field. You got to be able to tackle these guys because they are going to catch the ball in front of you. And the Eagles have become a much better tackling team. Couple quick thoughts here. You wrote a great story over at InsideTheBirds.com about people, it's time to start believing. And one of the things you wrote about is player development. And I know you're a big draft guy. You study these guys in the draft. But how important, Andrew, will player development be over these last 2 months of the season?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up because when you really look across the board and even think back to last year, you'd be hard-pressed to find a single player that really took a step in the right direction. Jordan Mailata might be the only player who I can say definitively got better. Well, look at this year. Look at some of the players primarily on the defensive side. Nolan Smith, he's second on the Eagles in sacks with 3.5. Jeremiah Washburn has done a tremendous job, the outside linebackers and defensive ends coach, and working with Jalen Hunt, who was thought by many to be a project. You look at the defensive line. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis took a big step forward under defensive lineman coach Clint Hurt. I look at the linebacker situation. I mean, it's tough to identify a better linebacking tandem right now in the NFL than what you're seeing right now with Zach Bond and Kobe Dean. They're certainly playing at a top 5 level, and that's a testament to the players, but of course, linebacker coach Bobby King, who was a virtual unknown coming into Philadelphia. And then the secondary, not much needs to be said. You're getting high-end performance from 2 rookies early on in their careers, and that you have to look at cornerbacks coach Roy Anderson, defensive backs coach Christian Parker, and then how about on the offensive side? There's been players that have been pressed into service, whether it be Grant Calcaterra, hat tip the tight end coach Jason Michael, Jeff Stoutland obviously is always he's probably a Hall of Fame coach. His ability to get Fred Johnson ready, to get Mekhi Becton playing at a high level at right guard while he's a tackle by trade, and also Tyler Steen. I think that those performances and those sort of they fly under the radar a little bit. They should be acknowledged a little bit more, and that is another layer to why the Eagles have been so successful.
Andrew, what do you think the impact of losing Huff is? Big impact, minimal, and just is it even going to be noticeable? I don't want to dislike the guy, but I don't think he's made the impact that they would like. But is it a bigger impact than maybe I'm giving it credit for?
It is a big impact, and I can hear a collective groan, but it's something that he was only playing 12 snaps a game. He only played 6 in the Jags game, but this is a team that was already really thin at that position. He gave you some experience. He gave you at least the ability to rush the passer in a situational capacity. And right now, you're looking at it and saying, okay, well, we need Jalen Hunt to be ready to go. And Jalen Hunt, by the way, didn't see a single defensive snap last week against the Commanders, and he played 25 against Dallas. So this is a player who you would like to obviously ease him in and get him some snaps here and there, but he's going to be asked to take on a sizable workload. Nolan Smith is going to have to take on a sizable workload to atone for some of that. And, in Jalen's case, he's probably best suited to be that fourth or fifth rusher and really gradually get his feet wet, but he's going to have to grow up fast. And it's a tall task. It's a tall task for all players involved.
Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com. Well, we are into the 11th week of the season against the Rams. This will be an interesting test here. The Rams 5-5. They're in play in the West and the wild card. The Eagles in play in the East and the number one seed. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN as both teams looking with playoff aspirations. Should be a fun one at SoFi, and you can check out Andrew DiCecco here on Football at 4 and InsideTheBirds.com. All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Sounds good.